This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 204. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where we're talking about painting, modeling, and working experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 videos a week. How? Could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, I actually got a ton of painting and modeling done, and I'm really nervous about that painting and modeling I got done because I think it might get invalidated when my army gets a codex. But first, have you ever noticed that the internet is made up of squares? Well, today's sponsor, Squarespace, is here to help with that. Squarespace allows anyone to design the website of their dreams with the most powerful and easiest design tools in the industry, like design intelligence. Using AI technology empowers anyone to build a more personalized website tailored to their needs, crafting a bespoke digital identity. Choose from a professionally curated selection of styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up. Squarespace makes sure it's easy to launch your website and get discovered faster with integrated optimized SEO tools so you show up more often to more people and grow the way you want. With Squarespace, it's never been easier to set up a unique online storefront. Whether your services are physical, digital, or service-based, selling your wares has never been easier. Squarespace offers unmatched ability to showcase your unique wares with images, videos, reviews, add-ons, all capped off with their seamless checkout tools, letting your customers use whatever system they prefer, whether Klarna, ACH Direct Deposit, Apple Pay, Afterpay, or ClearPay. Squarespace offers a free trial for you to dip your feet into and test the waters, and ready to dive in headfirst and go to squarespace.com/EonsOfBattle or follow the link in the description to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I have been hard at work on my Drukhari army, especially now that Scott's getting the lead out and he's working on his army, and I've got to make sure that my army is a little bit bigger than his army come Adepticon, and I actually got some units done. I finished the best model I've painted all year, my count as Urien rakarth. This is a proxy mini that I found online, and it is perfect. It is definitely a homunculus that has a very unique weapon, the Lament configuration, the puzzle cube from the Hellraiser movies. And so this is a one-shot weapon. I believe it's 3d6 attacks, but not torrent. But this is a really spicy once per game gun, and it's kind of really fun that it's once per game because then it's like, your whole turn is a little bit resting on this one gun, and you're like, I really want to see what this ends up doing this turn. Is it going to be amazing? Is it just going to kill like one Marine equivalent guy? Is it going to absolutely wipe a squad of guard? Is it not going to do a whole lot? It's a really, really fun weapon, but her ability really is she can resurrect on death. The first time she's killed, you just kind of set her down like a Necron warrior, and then come the end of that phase, you set her right back up. She can do this once per game, and it's really, really powerful because she's likely to die in close combat. And so the end of your opponent's turn, she's dead. But then the actual end of your opponent's turn, she stands back up, ready to rock and roll again in my turn. It's incredibly useful for objective shenanigan and just having a unit that kind of, the only way she can die in one turn is if she's killed in your opponent's shooting phase, stood back up at the end of the shooting phase, and then killed again in the fight phase. Which, unless I'm fighting like World Eaters or I've gotten myself into a really bad situation, is probably not going to happen. She is an incredibly powerful tool in the Dark Eldar toolbox. And the Dark Eldar don't have that much stuff in our toolbox. But speaking of other things that we've got in our toolbox, I also finished another squad of Grotesques. No, not this Grotesque. This Grotesque. I already have 3 Grotesques, so now I have 3 more Grotesques. These are also proxy models. The reason that these are proxy models is because Games Workshop doesn't have miniatures for me to buy. I can't buy an Urien rakarth or Grotesques right now. They haven't sold them for years, at least one whole year at this point. Definitely a little bit longer, because it has, even at the start of 10th edition, they didn't sell the Finecast Dark Eldar stuff. And so I had to go with some proxy models to get these units in my army, but the Grotesques are a really fun, big, bricky, strong unit. These guys also have some death shenanigans. When they die, you roll a dice, and on a 4-up, you treat them as having not died until they fight one last time, and then they finally drop dead. This can be really, really useful. Like if you get charged and your guys are going to get wiped out, it might be worthwhile to spend a pain token, and then you roll your dice, and if you have like a 3-man squad or a 6-man squad, half of them are gonna stand back up and get to fight. And then those fights, you're gonna be re-rolling all of your hits in the fight, and it's gonna be +1 AP for those combat attacks. And so they can actually do a lot of damage, even if they all get wiped out before they get to fight, because they always get to fight if I get a little bit lucky with my 4-up rolls. Another thing I really like about the Grotesques is that they are a homunculus unit, and in painting an entire Dark Eldar army, I have found I love the homunculus. Number one, the homunculus character, actual HQ unit is really, really good, attached to a squad of racks. Like a 10-man squad of racks with a homunculus can probably kill a medium quality character unit and like a medium squad of infantry really, really effectively. It's actually a surprisingly powerful unit for how piddly the racks are. Everything in a Dark Eldar army is really pretty weak sauce. We almost have an army-wide 6-up or 7-up save with a 6-up invulnerable save. But a lot of the homunculus units actually have a feel no pain. And the feel no pain is really, really key because even though you're gonna take damage and you're going to be dying, you can save a good amount of that damage with a feel no pain roll. Feel no pain rolls are really, really fun because, you know, your opponent does a certain amount of damage. It's like, okay, I've done 8 damage to you. Now I get to be like, oh, really? Well, let's see if you did do 8 damage. And then you roll the dice and it turns out that it was only 7 damage because you managed to save one of those damages going through. And the rack units, I paint mine as skinless dudes who are just weird muscle-bound savages. They're like really, really monstrous. And it's actually kind of easy to paint. I have a scale 75 color that I think is called Fresh Blood, but it's kind of their version of a contrast paint. It actually is a tricky paint to use because it reactivates really, really badly, but it looks exactly like meat. Like you put it over a white prime and it's the perfect color for flesh. On these Grotesques, I actually put down a layer of this paint and then I did a matte varnish and then I applied all of the little sinewy muscles with some Army Painter Ice Yellow and then I reapplied the red color and they're meaty. They're physically meaty and chunky. I really, really like the homunculus units. Basically, my army is now split right down the middle, homunculus, and then like all the other coven units. And before I started a Dark Eldar army, I assumed I would really, really like the witches, but man, am I struggling to paint some witches because I don't like the Games Workshop witches, and so I'm in the very slow process of kit bashing a 10-man squad of witches out of Daughters of Cain figures. And another thing that's kind of just put me off of witches is in-game, they are nothing. They're little like 6-up save, toughness 3, 1 wound bodies that they're not glass cannons because there's no cannon aspect to them. They're just pieces of glass that you can throw around the board and they don't do anything. Even with an attached succubus, and succubus is kind of good at 40 points, like she's almost free, but the unit is so incredibly weak that it almost doesn't matter that she's almost free. They'll kill like 2.5 Marine equivalents on the charge, but then the remaining 2.5 Marine equivalents will absolutely wreck the squad on the punchback. It's, poor witches. They really need a little something to make them okay-ish. All I'm aiming for is okay-ish in game, but right now I have 1 squad of witches in my list, and that is for Lilith Hesperex. Lilith Hesperex is phenomenal unit and she's incredibly cheap. I think she's like 85 points. Everything for Dark Eldar is incredibly cheap, which is making this army really hard to put together. Because usually like I finish a squad of Space Marines, that's like 175 points. That's like a giant chunk of my list. I finish a squad of Grotesques, that's 80 points. Or I think they might be 90 points. Urien Rakarth is 80 points. A homunculus is 70 points. Like I've got a whole desk of miniatures finished and it's not even 10% of my army. The Dark Eldar are in a really, really weird place right now because we don't have that many units and some of those units are going away, which is really, really annoying. But I can't imagine like an army that's scared of their Codex as much as Dark Eldar. I am really, really nervous now because I just put together a 2,000 point army that I'm really excited to play with in game, but it's gonna change. Like there's no way some of these units that currently are not available to purchase and some of the units that we have aren't gonna change dramatically when the Codex comes out. The big problem with the Dark Eldar is that we're old. A lot of our units are really, really old. And Games Workshop is kind of changing the way that they do a lot of their miniatures. I think that they're changing for the better, but I think some of those changes, the Dark Eldar are not looking forward to them. One of the big changes is rolling the points cost of things into just the unit stat block. And so if you want to bring a unit, you've essentially already paid for all of the special weapons. That's all for 90% of the time, that is absolutely fine. There's a couple of units that's a little bit awkward for, but Games Workshop came up with a really clever way of fixing that awkwardness by just giving the same unit multiple stat blocks. So like Tau Crisis suits, they can take tons and tons of different guns, but those different guns all have their own essential unit. And that's really nice because that means that the different guns can have a different special ability that suits those guns better. And so like there's the Sun Fury, which is the Melt-A-Gun Crisis suit. There's the Star Forge, which is the Plasma Gun Crisis suit. And so that worked out really, really well. Leman Russes have all sorts of different weapon options they can tech into, and those different options all get a different special ability. So I could see them doing something similar. The unit that I am most nervous of is the Scourges. The Scourges are the best thing in the Dark Eldar Codex. They are incredible. Movement 14, deep strike, fly, infantry. I believe they also have grenades keyword. They are incredible. They're expensive at 130 points for the first 5, and then I think it's 200 points for the next 5. So it actually gets a lot cheaper if you add more guys to the squad, but that's because the extra guys can't take the heavy weapons. But those heavy weapons are what have got me so nervous. Because right now, you can take any of the heavy weapons in any configuration, which means I can take 4 Dark Lances in a squad. Oh, Dark Lances. Dark Lances are Dark Eldar las cannons, but better. They're really incredibly powerful. And a squad of Scourges with 4 Dark Lances is an amazing anti-armor option. Similarly, Haywire Blasters are also really, really good for doing mortal wounds to vehicles. And so right now I have a 1 squad with all Darklands and 1 squad with all Haywire. And honestly, I would buy another 4 boxes of Scourges so that I could build these squads again. So I could have 2 Darkland squads and 2 Haywire squads. And I think there is something to the other weapon options. A full squad of Shredders, essentially the Dark Eldar Flamethrower, like a full squad of the Heavy Shuriken Cannon is like, it's really easy to build the exact squad you want to suit your army. But this isn't how Games Workshop does things anymore. Now they try to make it so that you get what comes in the box, and that you can't do that to Scourges. Because Scourges, only 1 of each heavy weapon comes in the box. And a Scourge squad with 1 Haywire, 1 Dark Lance, 1 Shredder, and like 1 of the Shuriken catapult guns is bad. That would be really, really bad. It would be a squad that is like, half of its shooting is okay for anti-tank, half of its shooting is kind of okay for infantry, but it doesn't have one thing it wants to do. It would like, right now, the squad is 130 points because you can do the Dark Lance thing. If you made it so that you can only have 1 Dark Lance, you gotta cut that points cost in half. They would lose so much of their utility. It's like the linchpin of the army, and it's almost certain to change, but you can't change it, Games Workshop. It's what we need. We need it to play the game. And speaking of needs, Court of the Archon is a unit that is almost certainly going away. It hasn't been sold in years, and it's a really awkward mix of characters attached to an Archon that can also kind of weirdly be attached to a Cabalite squad, and you can break that Cabalite squad in half using a Venom, and so you can kind of weirdly build this homunculus of a unit, which is funny because it's Dark Eldar, and have all of the sorta good guns shoved into 1 squad together. But it makes for an incredibly powerful unit that is almost a requirement for Dark Eldar because we don't have a lot of good units. Our units don't do a whole lot of stuff, and so Court of the Archon is a really important unit that is almost certainly going to get deleted from the game because it's awkward, it barely exists, and is not sold by Games Workshop. Similarly, Beastmaster. Beastmaster is kind of an afterthought unit for Dark Eldar that's really, really good. It's a character unit with a whole bunch of awkward beast stat lines that makes for an incredible move blocker. I threw this squad at a big squad of Khorne 8-bound, and they were killed down to 1 fiend. But I was able to keep them there for an entire turn while the rest of my army dealt with Angron. And then that 8-bound squad was just stuck. I think they failed their battle shop, and so they were stuck with me on that middle objective, and they couldn't do nothing. They couldn't do nothing. We were contesting the objective. Like, it's a perfect unit for the Dark Eldar. And it's, again, almost certain to not exist anymore because it doesn't have a unit. It barely exists. Is Games Workshop gonna make Beastmaster squad? It's hard to believe like they haven't made a unit like that since probably 2011 when the Dark Eldar got an army refresh. I am so nervous for the Dark Eldar and what is gonna happen when a Codex comes out. Now there is a rumor, and with 40k in rumors, basically what a rumor means is someone said something on Reddit and other people liked the sound of the thing that they said, and so now it's official until it's proven false. But 11th edition 40k is going to be, the launch box is gonna be Space Marines versus Dark Eldar. And on the one hand, I don't want, that sounds bad to me because that means that we're gonna be the Imperial Guard. We're gonna get our Codex a couple of weeks before the end of the edition and we need to get another Codex. I would be fine with that because the launch box is gonna mean we're gonna get at least like 5 or so new units. And the Dark Eldar could really, really use some new units and just make plastic versions of the units that we already have. I bought 1 squad of Grotesques, and these are from the same company, but they're proxies. One of them is like bony and muscly, and then the other one is Batman Baney and muscly. And I feel like they actually look really, really good together because Grotesques are just the Dark Eldar stole a guy and then filled him with the Bane juice from Batman to make them giant monsters. And so I feel like it makes sense for them to have different body proportions. I'm really hoping that Games Workshop now makes a Grotesque squad that looks a little bit different than both of these guys so that I can paint those up and then mix and match them all into these weird grotesque characters. I don't want to wait for 11th edition, but I'm also really, really nervous about this Codex because a lot of my 2,000 point list could get invalidated and it would be really sad. I want a beast pack so bad, but I'm so nervous to build it because this Games Workshop doesn't sell it and I can't find a really good proxy online. So I'm going to have to lovingly invent this unit out of thin air, and then it might just go away immediately. And I wouldn't be able to play it in like RTs or competitive events. And I've been enjoying playing a little bit more competitively with 40k. Obviously in friendly pickup games, you can do whatever you want. You can make up your own units to take in games, it doesn't matter. But for a real competitive event where it's me versus it's me versus actually good players. So it's me bad at 40k against people who are good at 40k, but it's really fun to see what good at 40k looks like. Like I want to bring these armies and see what they're really about and really get a feel for like how they operate in game. And Dark Eldar, it's just real risky right now. I'm really, really scared of this upcoming Codex. And I keep saying upcoming Codex, it's not even on the roadmap. It's not on the horizon. It might not come out this year. We already know the next many codexes. It's gonna be a lot of chaos, a lot of knights, a little bit of Space Marine, Black Templar, which is kind of interesting, Grey Knights, like we know a lot of the stuff that's coming out next. And it's not the Dark Eldar. There was a rumor that Dark Eldar were gonna get wrapped into the regular Eldar Codex. Didn't happen, we're still our own thing. But our own thing is really, really fragile. And I'm interested and excited and really, really nervous to see what is gonna happen. The Dark Eldar are in a little bit of a rough spot, but you know what's in a great spot? That's right, EonsOfBattle.com. EonsOfBattle.com is the place to find our merch, like the Nick and J dice. The J dice have been rolling hot lately, but the Nick dice are okay too. And also on our website is the best way to support us doing what we do with a membership. Each month, members will get 1 credit that they can use on our new monthly terrain packs or any previous pack we have ever made. For the month of February, we made the Grim Battlefield Basing Bits, and we're making them for real, available as physically printed packs or as digital STLs. These Grim Bits are the perfect thing for your dark miniatures to stand on. War-torn scenery isn't as easy to pull off as texture paste and graphs tufts, but with these bits, it's easy to give your miniatures the grim dark treatment. with a selection of sandbag and barbed wire barriers, ruin walls, smashed stained glass, unexploded ordnances, and more. All sized perfectly to complement any size of miniature. From giving an upgrade to your small rank and file trooper all the way up to big chunks of debris for filling up monster and vehicle bases, you can do it with the Grim Battlefield basing bits. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think is coming for the Dark Eldar? Are our Scourges gonna get left alone? Please, Games Workshop, leave the Scourges alone. I know it doesn't really work, but the Scourges are also kind of cheap. It's not that big a deal to buy multiples of them because they were made in like 2010, and so they're still relatively cheap by Games Workshop standards. It's okay, just leave them be. Don't ruin our Scourge squad. And then the stuff that they currently don't sell, it's so hard to believe that they're just gonna bring out some beautiful new plastics, but I'm still holding out hope that we're gonna get some like a beautiful new Urien rakarth and beastmaster and Court of the Archon, and it's gonna be glorious. I'm probably just hoping though. Thanks for watching.